Shalom, everyone. It is the time you've been waiting for as our virtual tour is about to continue, but we got to park the bus for a little while this morning and talk about a few things that have happened. You guys, good morning, Hanok, or afternoon for you. How are you doing?
Well, it appears Saturday night or on Shabbat itself, I suffered what I now understand to be a gallbladder attack. I didn't even know it was an issue, and
Well,
it sure enough is.
yeah.
So I'm feeling a little better.
Okay.
I had an ultrasound, get to play with the doctors a little bit. So, I mean, it's not like I have to guide a tour next week. So I
Yeah,
guess all things considered, I'll rest up.
I was going to say, you don't have any tours to do, so you got to find something for entertainment. I guess. So,
Yeah, this is quite the term, entertainment.
yeah, let the
But
doctors,
a lot of news here in Israel.
yeah, let the doctors
Um,
tour your body, right? So, a lot has happened in the last week. So, bring us up to date.
well, it was just last week we were talking about Meron and the bonfire, and by now everyone knows the horrific tragedy that occurred. 45 people were killed, a very large number injured, let alone the trauma. The crowds were way out of control, and that's politically related here in Israel. The very fact that we're weeks into opening up the country, and then all of a sudden the idea of 80, 90, 100,000 people can be crushed together, to me is astounding. Now, I had forgotten that my eldest, Ayala, when she was in Midrashah seminary, religious seminary, they went one year. Now, this would have been about 16 years ago. And she said it was horrific. The crowds, the pushing, it just, so all the girls from the Midrashah that went panned it so strongly, the school never went back.
Wow.
But this was a big thing in the ultra-Orthodox community. It's not strictly ultra-Orthodox. Astoundingly, it is not a site controlled by the government of Israel. That's the thing that makes my head want to explode. Since the time of the Ottomans, it was given over to a specific Haredi ultra-Orthodox sect, and they basically call the shots. And of course, our interior minister, Aryeh Deri, from Shas, will do anything to placate them.
Yeah.
Because that's, part of his world.
Yeah, that part.
It just, so the idea that there'll be a commission of inquiry sounds like, what was it, the Watergate Commission and the Starr Commission, and it's kind of like blah 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 blah. Yeah, it was.
I did not even know anything about this. I'd never seen this. So this is up in the area of Sfat. Is that true?
Yeah, Meron. Yes.
Okay,
and it's on a mountain, and it's a site that's never been set up for real use. Like in Israeli parks, nothing like that.
Okay.
So it's all ad hoc, and it was terrible. I mean, what a horrible way to die.
Yeah, and we're talking about the north shore of the Galilee, and if you were to look north from Capernaum, from Tabgha, from those different places, from Migdal, you would look at north directly to that town. I've only been up there once, to Sfat. It is a, should we say, interesting town? It is.
That's a great euphemism. That's a great euphemism. Yeah. I like that.
It is
interesting with the air quotes.
Yeah, it is the kind of the center of Kabbalistic thought. I it's the part of Kabbalah that I really have some problems with. It's kind of the Madonna style of Kabbalah, from my understanding, but very artsy place. I feel kind of like I'm going to a New Age celebration when you go up to Sabbat.
Yeah, and it's no surprise that it's not high on the list of future Connect to Israel experiences.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's, may all the casualties, those who are able to recover. And
Yeah.
speaking of disasters,
Yeah.
maybe potentially good news. Time has run out for Netanyahu, at least this go around, and the mandate to form a government has been turned over to Yair Lapid of the Yesh Atid party. And in theory, he's been having all kinds of conversations over the last few weeks to create some kind of coalition that would be, quote unquote, right-wing parties, centrist parties, and left-wing parties.
Okay.
Which in and of itself might turn out to be something that Israel needs. The unfortunate reality is, based on the numbers, even outside the coalition, they need the support of the ultra-Orthodox parties, which means that they would have to agree to a status quo, meaning not to change anything, which is just like, how much longer can you allow a subgroup in the population to just, get away easy on national service, on taxes, on working? But anyway.
Now, when you say the ultra Orthodox, this is, what most people would get in their mind of the black hat, the black coat, kind of, this is the mayor.
Yeah, but it's far greater than Mea Sharim, certainly Beitar Elite, B'nai Brak. I mean, there are many Haredi, that's the term for, what Americans call ultra-Orthodox groups and cities and locations throughout Israel. They are not all Hasidim, which I know is incredibly confusing. Okay. Some are, some aren't. But yes, they do dress like penguins. And for those of you who grew up Catholic and remember nuns, yeah, there's something about that black and white combo that connotes, true faith in the one true God.
Well,
yeah, right.
It kind of becomes a habit.
Yeah, that's right. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So
and these people, let's just go to this for a few moments, that the majority of them really do not give anything to society of Israel, in the fact that they do not serve in the military, they do not pay taxes, most of the men study all the time. It is their families are there's a lot of poverty. There's a lot of dysfunction, could I say it that way, in these groups. And so to pander to them is very similar to, it's kind of like well, we've got a lot of this happening in America too. Let's pander to those who are really not giving to society and expect that something's going to change. Yeah, probably not.
There's not an equitable situation.
No.
There is no, for instance, the government doesn't enforce a core curriculum. So if any of these kids growing up in the Haredi community wish to get a job or pursue a higher education, they don't have the educational background to do it. I mean, it's a very bizarre situation. Yeah, the idea of study, quote unquote, not everybody is a studier.
No.
And it's an excuse. And the fact that mothers in the community are the ones who go out and work. And this is where a lot of our tax shekels go. And there's an enormous amount of resentment.
Yeah,
It's a huge societal problem.
there's a lot of strain on the economy from health issues. I remember going to Israel. I'm coming up on my anniversary of my 23rd year anniversary of going to Israel the first time. And you go there with all kinds of things in your mind, and seeing these guys with the black hats and the black coats, and it's like you're a little starstruck until you see one of them light up a cigarette. And it was like, what in the world is this that's going on? So interesting. Let's go down to another thing that happened this week, Tabuak Junction. That is is that Highway 60?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was. I couldn't remember. I was actually teaching on this yesterday. The junction of Highway 60 and Highway 5 coming across from REL. This has been a hot spot through the years. I mean, how many terrorist attacks have happened and Tapuak, by the way, is Apple. So this is the Apple Junction as compared to maybe Petticoat Junction or something. I don't know.
Boy, I haven't heard a reference to that TV show. We could go on to, like, Bewitched or I Dream of Jeannie. Da-dum, 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 dum, da-dum, dum.
Sorry, folks, I got him started. I mean, I throw out a little softball, not even a softball, just, set it up on the tee ball and he runs with it. So, sometimes I do these things to entertain me and you. So that's just the way it is. You're welcome. Go ahead. Serious matter, Tapoic Junction. And my internet is now unstable. So
our connection seems to be weakening.
Yeah, well, let's give it a shot. So Tapoic Junction, what happened?
Are we back and stable?
Yeah, I think we're fairly stable. Go give it a try.
Mike, are you there?
Yeah.
Is anybody there?
Yeah, we're not extremely stable. We haven't had this problem in quite a while.
Can you hear me?
Connections. Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, you're frozen at my end. What do we do now? Okay, you can hear me. That's good. If this is like the Who's album, Tommy, can you hear me? Oh, and I can see you drinking with Tigger.
Okay. All right, let's try after all this to go to Tapoic Junction, and I will not give another reference to Petticoat Junction.
Okay. Yeah, that has been a hot spot. What happens is terrorists will stage an attack, and right next to it, of course, are areas controlled by the so-called Palestinian Authority, and they escape. We do go in after them, and we have, a very, very good intelligence service. Unfortunately, they have not caught the terrorists involved in this yet, but I have every bit of confidence in our security forces that we will. It's Ramadan still, and the bats are flying around the attic.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, the festivals,
I think you froze it.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. We have festivals, you have festivals in Israel of Pesach and Shavuot coming up, and Sukkot, and these are happy festivals of joy. On the other hand, you have Islam, which has things like Ramadan, which is basically let's go pray and then let's go destroy. The two religious aspects are so diametrically opposed And there are people that would say, well, Islam is just another, you know, not just another form of anything. It's the same God. I find that so absurd. I just don't know how to even describe how absurd that is, that someone would believe that the same God that Judaism, Messianic circles, even we could go to Christianity, would call the same, that same one of Islam, is
Yeah.
beyond me.
It's really, we're living in a bizarre world. On the one hand, you've got the current, third Obama administration, eagerly pursuing a New Deal, peace in our time, in
Mm-hmm.
the words of Chamberlain, with Iran. And it's just, the entire world is operating under the premise of being cuckoo land.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sure is. So, well, let's spend the rest of the time we have, now that it looks like we've gotten through our connection problems, up on the North Shore. Now,
Yes.
we're not going to cover everything in the North Shore of the Kinneret at the
Yep.
right now, but as you would come around from, just to give people an overview here, you would come around from the Arbel Cliff, and I actually have it tagged already in the opening picture for the update today of a picture of the Arbel Cliff from the boat ride. And so if people would imagine right there, and you would be kind of heading and going around north, turning to the northeast and then east, you'd come through the town of Migdal, or the place that is famous for Mary of Magdala. There is a synagogue that's been found there recently, correct? Not real recent, but in recent years, fairly.
Yes, it's one of eight from the Second Temple period. But what's amazing is, for most people, Magdala, is a Catholic-run site. I mean, it really makes me want to hold on to my kippah, so when my head explodes, and of course, being a Catholic-run site, the billboards that they have set up explaining different things all show Yeshua and his compatriots with a halo around them, in the Catholic style, where and inside the building, what's really great, they have an amazing painting of Yeshua, and you see the tzitzit. Now, I have no idea how it is that they can just kind of like whitewash the whole thing. But,
Yeah.
who am I to shed light on that?
Yeah, I know. It's kind of the pick and choose of everything. So we have Migdal. We would have a place called Tabga, which is the traditional site of the loaves and fishes at the end
Yes.
of the Besorah, the Gospels. We have the traditional site of the Mount of Beatitudes. We then would have Capernaum.
Love that place.
Yeah,
Love that place.
we're gonna actually probably get there next week. In we don't have time to really go into it. We have two other cities in the area. What is it, Bethsaida and Chorazin, that is known as the Evangelical Triangle, which is kind of an interesting analogy of these places. And then you would go to what would be considered the other side of the lake. And this is one of those for me that was kind of a transformation of reading the accounts. It says when they got into a boat and they went to the other side of the lake. Now, for me, that is in English, Western translation is I'm going from Tiberias to Engev, which is totally, one
Yeah,
side to the other. But in that
right.
day, as today, to go across to the other side was to go across the Jordan River, where the Jordan comes into the Kinneret, correct?
Yeah. It really is fascinating, and curdling spasm, with your mention of the evangelical triangle. It's and I mean that is what it's called. But the again, we fall back to the stripping away from Yeshua of his Jewishness. I mean, it's just and
Well,
yeah,
here's where it comes in, Hanok, and maybe this is a good place for us to kind of run with for a few moments that we have left. That the influence of the Catholic Church, Constantine's mother goes to Israel and wants to find out where, she was not asking where Jesus walked, by the way, because in that day there would have been no J in the languages that were being spoken. So whatever term she was using, she's over there asking, so where did this happen? Where did this happen? And when the occupiers of the land of that day, to use that term, when the occupiers figured out that, oh, if we point to something, she will give us money.
should
Uh,
build a big church. Yeah,
yeah, so it's kind of like the Dead Sea Scrolls. If we got one scroll, let's break it up into 500 fragments and we get more money. And so we enter into in the North Shore of the Galilee, we enter into the P scale. Now, the P
yeah,
scale is something I was taught by a guide years ago, Yael, and it is you have four P's. You have positive, which we can look at Capernaum, and say that is a positive. You have
absolutely.
you have probable. Let's go to maybe Tabga, the feeding of the loaves and fishes. That is
Right.
probable. You have possible, the area of the Mount of Beatitudes. That's a possible, but I
Right.
don't see it really as fitting the narrative. And then you have preposterous, which is kind of what most of Constantine's mother did. And preposterous is that Yeshua would have, and the Holy Family would have been wearing halos. Just say.
Yeah. Now you can't argue that point. Now it's just, and the reality is people are going to believe what they want to believe regardless. And we come back to that, the amazing story at the Shorshim shop, our dear friends Moshe and Dove, who related the story that years ago, these two women come walking in the store. Evidently, they had just taken a break from their tour. And one said to the other, "That Jesus was a Jew? Heaven forbid." So, it's and for those of our listeners, you know, our listeners have really gone and searched and struggled with their religious beliefs,
Mhm.
what they were taught, what they now believe. And I think the assumption is that just about everybody has done that. That ain't true.
No.
And
Still, go ahead.
no, it's so if you say to someone, for instance, that where would there have been an Easter bunny, you know, it just doesn't work.
Yeah. And this is something that I have fought, even not just with groups, but personally for 29 trips to the
Yeah.
land, is you go with preconceived notions of what you think you know.
Yeah.
And when you do that, when you go thinking you know something, you normally can find it. And then it
That's
becomes
true.
truth. Then it becomes truth. It becomes your truth. Now, your truth may not be truth, as I think we would probably discuss when we talk about maybe the tomb in Jerusalem at some point in time.
The
They
garden tomb.
the Garden
Yeah.
Tomb. They've done a fabulous job of marketing there.
Incredible.
Yeah,
Incredible.
probably one of the best jobs of marketing in all of Israel is the Garden Tomb. But to look at the narrative and to compare it, there's probably some difficulties there. Yeah. So
Yeah. It doesn't work.
this is true in life, and let's kind of close on this. While I'll turn it over to you. That when you walk into something wanting to find your truth, you'll find your truth, but it may not be truth. We can do that in
Wow.
scripture. We can do that by opening scripture and looking for what I believe to be truth, or I can allow myself to go, okay, now let me question this. Let me allow this to be questioned. And
Right.
we're going to go to a place in a few weeks that's on the northeast shore of the Kinneret, kind of up in a valley that looks kind of like a camel hump, hint, hint. And at that point, we're going to really uh, go a little in your face with what some have thought to be truth, something that could
Yeah.
rearrange our whole thought processes regarding the time of Yeshua and what was going on there. So
Absolutely.
we'll get to that in a few weeks. But your final thoughts, hello.
You know, this is a time of tremendous opportunity. Everybody is focused on, the crisis du jour, you know, from elections in either the US or here in Israel to, rumors and innuendo. But this is the time that tries people's faith.
Yeah.
This is the time when communities need to unite, when families need to pull together, and we need to look for the literal as well as figurative day after.
Mm-hmm.
When you were talking about that you're approaching the anniversary of your very first trip to Israel, one of the things that's most in my heart is to make sure that you get to add another number to that total ASAP. And part of it, believe it or not, requires a change in our government here
Yeah.
for someone to really give a darn.
Yeah.
Now, unemployment in Israel, which went from 4% in February 2020, soaring up to 28%, is now down to 10%. We've got to work on that 10% because it's not just me.
Yeah.
I had to take a taxi to the urgent care the other night, got into a conversation with the guy, and he said, doesn't the government realize that we're all, starving after 14 months? Depends on who's in the government.
Yeah, that may open up a can of worms. Worms aren't really kosher, so maybe we'll leave that for another week.
And there's so little that I can even conceive of eating right now. Worms aren't one of them.
All right. Well, hey,
just remember.
Pray that everything works out for you. Okay.
Thank you. One thing: the worms crawl in, the worms crawl out. Never mind. Okay, bye, y'all.
See ya.
See you next week.